Xtalks is the industry leader in connecting life science, food, healthcare, and medical device professionals. The Xtalks Life Science podcast features insightful conversations with industry experts about all things pharma, biotech, and more.
Hello and welcome to the Xtalks Life Science Podcast. I'm Ayesha Rashid, Senior Life Science Journalist at Xtalks.com. And this week, I am so happy to introduce our special guest on the show. We have with us today Dr. Ebrahim Delpassand, who is the founder and CEO of RadioMedix, which is a company focused on innovative targeted radiopharmaceuticals for the diagnosis, monitoring, and therapy of cancer. The company is developing radiopharmaceuticals for PET imaging and therapeutic radiopharmaceuticals as well. Dr. Delpassand is a board-certified nuclear medicine physician with extensive expertise in clinical nuclear medicine, oncology, and healthcare entrepreneurship. He previously served as deputy chair and chief of clinical nuclear medicine at MD Anderson Cancer Center and is the founder and chairman of Diagnostics and Nuclear Oncology Center. A leader in nuclear medicine research, Dr. Delpassand is the principal investigator and sponsor of 5 active INDs. Dr. Delpassand holds adjunct professorships in radiation oncology at the University of Texas, as well as in the Department of Nuclear Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas. So to learn more about the landscape of drug development in the radiopharmaceutical space and oncology, let's turn to Dr. Delpassand now. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you so much, Ayesha. Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be at Xtalks and tell you about our journey at RadioMedix.
Indeed, and we are so happy to have you and looking forward to learning more about that journey and really how you and RadioMedix are leading in the radiopharmaceutical space. And so we'd love to learn so much more about that. And to kickstart, I'd like to first start off by asking you what really inspired the founding of RadioMedix and what is the company's main mission and goals?
Great question. As a physician, when you see patients, always you feel that how you can do better, how you can address the problems of your patient. And of course, we always have areas that we can improve. I think that was the main engine in going and founding RadioMedix. For us, we were interested in, of course, when we were dealing with cancer patients, we were always interested to do better. And this is why we were bringing needs from the clinic to our scientists at RadioMedix, telling them what is the problem, what is the unmet need, and ask them for help. And combination of information coming from the clinic, from patient beds, into bench and talking to scientists and capitalizing on our knowledge in radiopharmacy was really what made RadioMedix.
And so, Dr. Delpassand, what are the current gaps in oncology? As you mentioned, there are a great number of unmet needs. And also, what are the kinds of gaps in the radiopharmaceutical space? And how are you at RadioMedix looking to fill those therapeutic gaps and then those gaps in advancing radiopharmaceutical technology?
I mean, in the last several decades, I think we have had a lot of progress in the field of oncology in treating patients, but still there are many areas that we definitely can do better. These areas at this point are cancers that are difficult to treat, and for sure we should be able to do better, to have a better outcome for the patients, to increase the quality of life of the cancer patients while undergoing therapies, and definitely extending the life. Obviously, we strive for cure of the cancer, but even if 100% cure is not achievable, we definitely can do a lot better. There are certain conditions, such as, let's say, I just give few examples, like brain tumor, right? Pancreatic adenocarcinoma, like uh, castration resistant prostate cancer, like triple negative breast cancer, some sarcomas. I mean, these are areas that really uh, we need to do better. In case of brain cancer, let's say, in spite of chemotherapy, external beam radiation therapy, and surgery, still we really haven't been able to make a dent in terms of patient survival in the last few decades in this area. So just imagine that we invent a silver bullet that with simple IV administration of a drug, the drug can go and find the cancer cell wherever they are throughout the body, attach to the cancer cell, internalize, and then deliver a load of lethal radiation to the cancer cell. This is in summary the fundamentals of targeted radioligand therapy. We always, when I talk to our patients, I always give an example of the lock and the key. And essentially, lock is what we have on the cancer cells, on the surface of the cancer cells. And the key is the molecule that, in a targeted fashion, can be injected intravenously and in a targeted fashion go through the bloodstream, gets absorbed into the body, and go and finds these cancer cells wherever they are, attaching to the cancer cell, attaching to the lock, and then open the lock, gets inside the cell, and deliver a payload of radiation that can kill the cancer cell. All cancer cells, they die if there is enough radiation given. No cancer cell can survive with the high radiation. The DNA damage by the radiation is essentially the trick. Um, uh, another trick is that how we can deliver a lethal dose of radiation to the cancer cell, but at the same time prevent irreparable damage to healthy organs. And here is where nuclear medicine essentially challenges. And we have been successful in many areas. We have had significant success in treating neuroendocrine cancer, which is considered one of the orphan cancers or rare cancers. Previous to radioligand therapies, our success was very limited. But with the advent of the radiopharmaceuticals and targeted radionuclide therapy, understanding a special receptor on a neuroendocrine cancer cell and making a ligand that has high specificity for that receptor, then we have been able really to help significantly to the patients. And the first generation, of course, we were using beta emitters, and now we are using alpha emitters. Alpha emitters are significantly higher. They have higher, what we call it, the linear energy transfer, which causes a double-strand DNA damage, which leads to a cell death. And therefore, the possibility of recurrence is going to be a lot less when we are using a very high energy, alpha particles.
Indeed, and I really think radiopharmaceuticals really exemplifies what targeted medicine really is. It doesn't, as you described it, being a lock and a key, really getting into the gates of the cancer. I think it's like a textbook or poster child of what targeting really is in cancer
Exactly. I think it qualifies the term of personalized medicine.
and personalized medicine. Absolutely.
Another advantage of using radiopharmaceuticals is the concept of theranostics, which,
Yes, I was just going to ask you about that. Yeah.
right, you have a diagnostic agent which actually acts as a test drive for the therapeutic version of the drug. This is very actually unique characteristics of nuclear medicine, because when we are treating patients with systemic chemotherapy, for example, We go by the statistics that comes from clinical trials. In certain clinical trials with this disease, this chemotherapy, uh, you know, basically help 60% of the patients to have progression-free survival for these many months or these many years. Okay, so when the patient is sitting in my office, that patient, I cannot tell whether the patient is going to be among those 60% responders or 40% that they don't respond. In nuclear medicine, at least we have a test drive with the drug. Before exposing the patients to therapeutic dose of radiopharmaceuticals, with the diagnostic test, we can actually see whether we can successfully deliver the radiopharmaceutical to the site of the tumor. So we treat what we see. What we see on the diagnostic image is the one that we are treating. And beforehand, before the therapeutic portion of the therapy, we know that can we successfully reach to those tumors. And of course, based on the activity, based on what we see on the diagnostic test and the amount of activity, we can kind of guess how successful we're going to be in delivering lethal dose of radiation to the tumor cells.
Indeed, that's such an innovative and a very unique characteristic and concept in radiopharmacy, which I think is super exciting, where you can combine the diagnosis and the therapy in one bullet, so to say, and really test drive that as you described it. So that's so exciting, and again, having that kind of a unique feature or unique aspect in this field just makes it very interesting and full of promise, indeed. And so, in terms of RadioMedix's approach, really, I wouldn't say there are a whole host of. I think the field is definitely growing, but not a whole host of companies right now. But there are big pharma companies as well, though, exploring radiopharmaceuticals. But what sets RadioMedix apart from other players in the field?
Uh, I think what sets us apart is the organic growth of RadioMedix. We have been from day one dedicated to nuclear medicine. Uh, we were trying to understand the difficult to treat cancers, which ideas come from clinic, and trying to use our knowledge in radiopharmaceutical to essentially have an answer, have a drug that can actually help with the situation. Of course, in our field, there are many companies that they bought their ways by acquiring other companies, etc. But I think this being organically grown is one of the differentiating, parts of RadioMedix as compared to the other companies. Not that we are the only one. There are several other organic companies also in our space. And another thing is that RadioMedix has always try to really scratch somewhere that somewhere itching. We were trying to do better from the status quo, and this is why historically we didn't want to do another do a drug development on another drug which already maybe approved and commercially available, or there are several other drugs in this with the same kind of a strategy in the clinical trials. We wanted to uh, uh, I call those developments as Me Too developments. Maybe it's a different term, but overall, we don't want to. We want to be creative, and we want to do something that, for sure, it has advantage to other current clinical trials or approved drugs. I think these two areas, being innovative, trying to do something better, and at the same time organically growing, and this is what we have done in the last 18 years of the company.
That's wonderful. And your RadioMedix is in a space that um has its unique challenges, unique opportunities, but also unique challenges, of course. And so, can you describe some of those challenges, and particularly from the perspective of clinical development? Of course, from preclinical through clinical development through to commercialization, the whole journey has at every step of the way different challenges and different considerations. And so, in clinical development, in let's say talking about clinical trial design, what are some of the considerations and some of those really important aspects to keep in mind and the challenges when developing radiopharmaceuticals for to be trialed in clinical trials?
Sure. Obviously, I mean, we are proud to uh, essentially functioning from in the entire value chain, from drug discovery all the way to commercial manufacturing. And of course, there are a lot of challenges in here, but at the same time, trying to create a very good team that they can essentially conduct at each portion of this value chain. Drug discovery, of course, requires scientists who are highly knowledgeable in the field, understand the concept of target, understand how to work with different radioisotope according to the pharmacokinetics of each ligand. So you have to have uh, definitely an isotope with an appropriate half time that you are attaching to a ligand with certain circulation time in the blood, and of course the affinity of the ligand with the type of target that we are targeting of the cancer cells. So that is one area. Knowledge is everything. I mean, knowledge. You need to have knowledge. At the same time, discipline. I mean, one challenge in research is uh, you have a tendency to be scattered to because of the very active mind. You have this challenge that you might jump from one thing to the other in drug development. To me, that's a big risk. We need to keep our focus, and we need to, as much as we are anxious to proceed and essentially work on one ligand or one drug. At the same time, if it doesn't work, we need to have the courage to abort it, to essentially say, okay, we have tried it, this does not have the maximum affinity that we want, and be ready to do that. I think that is the best saving that you can have when you understand the um, the sort of deficiencies or shortcomings of a drug that you are trying to develop. Another one, understanding the regulatory landscape. There are many ways, several ways to reach to a same, point. Understanding the fastest and most cost-effective way in reaching to that point, I think that is extremely important. And of course, when the drug is getting mature and takes the different phases of drug development, then you need to know how to commercialize that and to know how to navigate the landscape of reimbursement, commercial launch, manufacturing. All those stuff are extremely important. So there are a few things in here. Number one, we need to educate ourselves, educate our team when we want to embark on a project, highly educated. At the same time, I cannot emphasize enough, get the best consulting in what you're doing. Get the KOLs, key opinion leaders of the field, and consult with them. I think that's the best money that you can spend. Try to make an educated decision about each step, whether drug, discovery phase, or on the regulatory side, conducting a clinical trials and the commercial manufacturing. This is extremely important. I cannot emphasize this enough. So these are all the steps that you need to take in order to be successful. So for our younger generation, my advice is, uh, number one, from day one, try to educate yourself about the things you want to do. Try to be the best in the in the field, and use the consultation as much as you can from the KOL of the field, and then put these pillars of have a solid pillar of legal, accounting, regulatory, just line up these things from inception. I mean, it's never too early to do these things. So do these things for a successful infrastructure of your company, and I'm sure the success will follow.
That is fantastic advice. And coming from really a thought leader yourself, I think that's very valuable. Those are very valuable tips and considerations for sure for people looking to embark on a career in biotech and the pharmaceutical industry and in innovating new medicines. Indeed. So thank you for that. And in terms of when we talk about clinical trials and really evaluating radiopharmaceuticals and trials, given the complexity of things like imaging based endpoints and radioactive dosing, how do you structure trials, or what are some of the approaches to ensure both safety and efficacy are clearly demonstrated?
Obviously, for drug development, you need to have always endpoint, at the beginning. So knowing what you want to make, what would the final label of your drug will look like, and based on that, design your clinical trial. And of course, as I mentioned, consultation is extremely needed in here to design a clinical trial. And also, if we are in US, we need to talk to FDA. We need to have several meetings with FDA, pre-IND meetings, Type C meetings, Type B meetings. Any help we can get from the agency will translate into a better design of the clinical trial and successful achieving the endpoints of each clinical trial. We cannot work in the silo. We need to describe what our goals are and get agencies sort of acceptance of those goals and the way that we want to reach to those goals. So nothing is better than asking the agency and saying that this is our goal, this is what we think should be our endpoint. Does agency agree with that? And if they are not agree, why? It's a great dialogue, and I think this is one of the major advantages of what we have in the United States. You can talk to the regulatory agency and ask them about their input of what is needed really to scientifically prove a hypothesis and come up with the indication of a drug that down the road you can put it in your label, and down the road you can actually let physicians to use the drug based on the approved label.
That's wonderful. I think your message about really thinking about what that label is going to look like in the beginning will set the stage for how your clinical development plan should be designed in alignment with that to reach that goal. And of course, the regulatory agencies and engaging with them throughout the process. So, very, very important insights for sure. And in terms of when we talk about patient recruitment for trials, really, I- are there any specific considerations or challenges in terms of are there some patients that are better suited to receiving a radiopharmaceutical versus not? And how do you really select your patient pools and cohorts?
I mean, the most challenging type of clinical trials are the ones that patients they don't get an immediate benefit. So let's say we are designing we want to do a prognostic study for brain tumor. And the first step is having a diagnostic study to just proof of concept, just to see whether this drug that we want to develop as a therapeutic drug will actually get to the tumor. So we design a diagnostic study for patients. In this situation, patients don't necessarily get any benefit. It's purely voluntarily and purely, essentially, we are asking the patient to dedicate their time and effort coming for this test, knowing that they are not going to have any direct, immediate benefits from that. And of course, you know, these patients, they have been just diagnosed, let's say, with a catastrophic illness like brain tumor. And many of them, they don't feel that they want to do anything extra. This is the feeling. So to me, that's one of the most challenging type of clinical trials when we are dealing with this kind of a situation, or a phase one sort of a dose escalation trials. These are all more challenging. I think to address this challenge, I think the best way is, number one, to train the principal investigators of the trials how to talk to the patient, how to convince them, how to tell them that what kind of a value they bring. That's true that they are not going to get the immediate benefit from this, but tell them about the value of their work and the effect that they're going to have in the future patients in terms of having a better treatment for the disease that they are suffering right now. So this kind of insight, giving this kind of insight to patients, I think is extremely important for convincing them to dedicate a day, 2 days of their basically time for these kind of studies, so they can help pushing the envelope and essentially uh, uh, designing better drugs for the same disease that they are suffering.
That is such great insight, which I don't think we hear a lot about in terms of really explaining what is being done in a clinical trial. There's not a whole lot of understanding in terms of how trials work in the general public. And so, certainly, to inform patients and to really get them on board and buy into what they're being a part of, that's really excellent.
And I think here we need help from patient advocacy groups, patients who are, the advocacy groups that they are focused on certain diseases, and there are many of them. Almost for any cancer, we have patient advocacy groups, and those groups, I think, they can play a great role in terms of patient enrollment in different research processes. I mean, we don't want to, we are not doing anything risky for the patients. We are obviously, they are highly regulated. All the protocols they get reviewed by FDA, and then with institutional review boards, IRBs, basically they make sure that the patient's rights are concerned, and safety is observed. So with this kind of if they can help us to enroll patients, I think it's a great help in conducting these clinical trials. And in terms of timing, we don't want to have a clinical trial that takes years to finish. Sometimes it is then become irrelevant at the time that the study is finalized. So I really think that patient advocacy group can play a great role in terms of spreading the knowledge and information to the patient group, and tell them how important it is to participate in different clinical trials.
Indeed. And in terms of different trial designs, how do you see things like adaptive trial designs and or really other considerations and aspects like access programs at the end of the clinical development and into commercialization journey? What are how do those aspects look like for this particular space of radiopharmaceuticals?
I mean, for each drug is really different. It depends on the information that already exists. I mean, there are pathways that we can go to FDA and rely mostly on published literature. There are pathways for orphan conditions, the diseases that they have very low incidence in US. We can request the orphan designation and at the same time be to be able to communicate with FDA, on a regular basis regarding the steps that we want to take. Uh, and there are some, clinical protocols that we have to be going very classic in a phase 3 trial. Randomization must be done, and this is the standard, gold standard of clinical trials. So, it depends on the drug that we are developing. And again, here is the role of consulting and on talking to different regulatory groups, close communication with FDA, and of course, experience. Your own experience is extremely important for developing of the drugs.
And as this whole conversation has been really about how I think the field of radiopharmaceuticals remains quite innovative, even though it's been around for a long time. And you can, of course, speak to the history of that. But how have you seen the field evolve and reach to where it is today? And again, with leaders like yourself at RadioMedix really driving innovation forward in the field, and where part 2 of my question is, how far have we come, and where is the field headed, and what are the advancements that excite you most about the field, that some of which RadioMedix is leading?
We have come a long way. The first radioiodine therapy for treatment of thyroid cancer was done probably 80 years ago or more. So, and of course, this is the best treatment that we have for differentiated thyroid cancer. Uh, we have come a very long way, and especially I'd say in the last 20 years, the menu of these radioligand therapies and the diagnostic probe, we shouldn't forget that. That is also very important. There was a time that we had a test for prostate cancer to see if there is metastases, there is extension outside the prostate gland, etc. That was by itself a drama to even look at the images and make a conclusion. Most of it was imagination. But now we have a drug, all these PSMA ligands that are available, that is extremely clear with very high sensitivity and specificity, that we can actually detect prostate cancer at a very early stage, detect the invasion of tissues surrounding the prostate gland, as well as the lymph nodes that there might be metastases. This has revolutionized the staging of this disease. So uh, the diagnostic part is also extremely important, and we have come a very long way. Now we have a test for neuroendocrine cancer. We have tests for prostate cancer, for many other cancers that the goal is for treatment. We have excellent diagnostic probes. So that is uh, again extremely important, and the field will only grow. We're going to have more of these specific diagnostic probes coming into nuclear medicine. Along that, all the therapeutic ligands that we have moved from initial high dose indium 111 therapies to beta emitters such as yttrium 90 and lutetium 177. And now we're talking about highly effective and potent alpha emitters such as lead 212, actinium 225, astatine 211. So these are the growth that we are seeing, and this is why we see now, obviously, big pharmas are extremely interested in our field. The field is growing. The sites that they can provide these services, clinics that provides these services, and also capable of conducting clinical research are growing. So this is a wave of the future, and the future is already here.
That is so exciting indeed. And so, in terms of RadioMedix being part of that future, What milestones can we expect from the company this year and in the next couple of years?
I wish we had a pipeline to address all the unmet needs, but there is only 24 hours in a day and 365 days in a year. So our time is limited. But we are focusing again on those hard to treat cancers. And these include GBM, the brain tumor, glioblastoma multiforme, uh, adenocarcinoma of the pancreas, uh, and better therapies for castration-resistant prostate cancer. We have exciting ligands for treatment of liver cancer and some rare urothelial cancers, as well as some targets to treat sarcomas, which is again another huge unmet need.
Wonderful. Dr. Delpassand, thank you so much for your time and your wonderful insights. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for, again, I say this to, all of our thought leaders and we have on the show, really the work that you're innovating and leading and advancing in your field and in radiopharmaceuticals, especially being such an exciting field. So being at the cusp of innovation and really with a company like RadioMedix, it's truly, truly exciting to see all of the developments, and we'll definitely here at Xtalks keep a watch out, keep an eye out for the latest from RadioMedix. And once again, thank you so much for your work, everything you do in the field to advance the field, and for being on the show with us today to share all of it.
But thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much once again. All right, that's the end of this episode of the Xtalks Life Science Podcast. If you liked today's show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next week. Bye for now.
To join the Xtalks community, visit xtalks.com and register for exclusive access to curated content like live webinars, news articles, and educational videos. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers sharing them and should not be taken as professional advice, nor do they necessarily reflect the policy or position of Honeycomb Worldwide. For further information, email us at podcast@xtalks.com.